Today, one of our veteran members of the faculty will be our graduate commencement speaker. He is Dr. Alan Shepard, who during his 34 years as a history professor has definitely gone the extra mile. Actually, he's gone many extra miles to increase his own knowledge and to enrich his classrooms. Since he came to Chadron State, there has scarcely been a year when Dr. Shepard hasn't been attending a seminar or traveling in the United States or to other countries to see where history was made. When he wasn't traveling, he was developing scholarly papers to help others learn about the places, personalities, and events that he studied and saw during his travels. Through his travels, Dr. Shepard developed a half a dozen special courses that he taught at Chadron State College. All of this, of course, is in addition to his regular teaching duties. Dr. Shepard said his love for travel dates back to the vacation trips his family took when he was a youth growing up in Madrid, Nebraska. Specifically, he recalls trips to the Black Hills and to the mountains of Colorado. He also remembers riding in the back of an open truck during a Boy Scout trip to Colorado. Altogether, Dr. Shepard taught nearly 20 different courses and delivered 38 scholarly papers at various history conferences. About 20 of those papers are published. In 1980, he founded the Campus Historical Forum. The organization has raised funds by hosting the popular Oktoberfest on the CSC campus for the past 22 years. Most of the proceeds from the Oktoberfest were used for numerous tours throughout the country for the student members of the Historical Forum. In addition, he's led student groups on 5 tours of Europe and co-sponsored 2 trips to Mexico and 1 to Hawaii with Chadron's biology professor, Ron Whedon. Dr. Shepard said the crowning experience was in the spring of 1992 when he coordinated the Nebraska Semester Abroad program and spent about 4 months in Prague, Czechoslovakia, and Leuven, Belgium. Dr. Shepard has announced that he will be retiring from Chadron State, but we are fortunate that he will continue to teach some graduate courses for us over the next 3 years in a phased retirement. We're so pleased that Dr. Shepard has agreed to speak to us today, and we wish him and his wife Sarah many more years of pleasant traveling experiences. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker for this ceremony. Please help me welcome Dr. Alan Shepard.
President Park, platform dignitaries, honored graduates and relatives, guests and colleagues. What's in your wallet? Lest I sound like a TV commercial enticing you to put some plastic in your billfold, lest I sound like a Madison Avenue huckster, lest that sound you hear behind you out in the foyer are uncouth, unclean Vikings trying to break in here and destroy civilization, let's put it in perspective. What's in your wallet? Money. And hopefully with these advanced degrees, you can put more money in your wallets in the future. But what else do you find in your wallet? You find your identification, your ID, which is ethical ballast, moral groundings, and your life's values and goals. The 19th century Polish poet Cyprian Norwood said, "One should have something to live on, something to live for, and something to die for." The lack of one of these things results in drama. The lack of 2 of these things results in tragedy. What's in your wallet? Let's take a look at what Cyprian Norwood said. Something to live on. Our society is geared around money. And when I think of money, I think of that song from Cabaret, money, money, money. It comes in different forms. It comes in dollars, it comes in pounds, it comes from pesos, it comes from forints, and it comes in things like visas. I heard a very disturbing statistic last week. The average American has 6 credit cards and is about $6,000 in debt. That's not a very good statistic for our society. Not only that, but as a society, we not only don't save like we used to, we not only don't save like the Japanese still do, they put about 20% away. We don't save anything as a society. Not only do we spend everything we earned, we actually are in the zero category. Not good for a society. What's the alternative? I suppose we could do like the monks did in Monte Cassino in a monastery for centuries. They took a vow: chastity, poverty, and obedience. Poverty, no money. Did that solve their problem? I don't think it solved the problem of temptation. When I think of temptation, I think of what Oscar Wilde said: I can resist anything but temptation. The monks in the long run were corrupted too, because if you read that book, excellent detective novel by Umberto Eco, it's called The Name of the Rose. And the monks in medieval Europe were arguing about how poverty-stricken should we be, how much wealth should we accumulate. So that's perhaps not an alternative. If we think of what to live on, how much money is enough? Well, Bill Gates is worth about $54 billion. That's with a B. His good friend, the Oracle of Omaha, is worth about $44 billion. That's with a B. They're now meeting in Omaha, Berkshire Hathaway, this weekend. I think what is good about both of these gentlemen, they're excellent role models. They earned their money the old-fashioned way. They got down and earned it. They didn't inherit it. I think, too, there's a redeeming quality there. We can call it philanthropic redemption. Both Mr. Gates and Mr. Buffett are giving away large amounts of their money. Mr. Buffett has been known to said, I'm not going to leave my kids much money. He said, in a sense, it will corrupt them. They have to go out and earn it. When I think of negative role models in terms of money, I think of people like Ken Lay. I think of what's going on in Houston, Texas these days, the trial of Ken Lay for what he did to Enron. Not just what he did to Enron as a business, what he did to the lives of the people who worked there. Their jobs are gone. In most cases, their retirement is completely gone. I hope the jury sees fit to do justice to Ken Lay. When I think of negative models, too, in terms of what to live on, I think of Crassus, who was a member of the first triumvirate in ancient Rome. Julius Caesar contributed his military skills, his political ambition, and his legions. Pompey, the second of the three, contributed his military skills and his legions. The third member was Crassus. He was wealthy. That's what he contributed. He had ill-gotten gains. One thing he didn't have the military reputation or the military skills of the other two. So when they got in power, he took a legion. He went to Parthia, which is in today's Iran. He engaged the Parthians in battle, and he got defeated. They captured him alive. The Parthians knew of Crassus' lust for gold and riches. So they poured molten gold down his throat. It is said that Crassus died a very rich man. Balance, I think, is what we need here. Balance between too much and too little. Listen to what John Wesley said. Earn all you can, save all you can, give all you can. Cyprian Norwood's second point, something to live for. I think something to live for is easier if you keep an optimistic perspective on life. Earl Warren, who's the former governor of California and became the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, once said, I'm an optimist. When I read a paper in the morning, I pick up the sports section first because that expresses the triumphs of mankind. Then I read the front page, which expresses the disasters of mankind. Perhaps that's a good perspective. However, if Mr. Earl Warren lived today, he would pick up the sports section and read of Barry Bonds, and steroids. When I think, for example, of what to live for, I think of people like Hugh Hefner, Hef as they call him. In many ways, Hugh Hefner is the ultimate success in American society. He's lived his life as he wants to. He has a nice house. That's an understatement, a nice house. He's surrounded by all of the flesh that he ever wanted to be. His Playboy magazine is, well, it was successful. But I think if one looks closer at the life of Hef, it's a life squandered in hedonism. It's a life given to sybaritic decadence. And in the long run, we can see many societies in history have succumbed from sybaritic decadence. When I think of successful lives, what people have really lived for, I can think of no better example than Jane Addams. Jane Addams was a young woman in the late 19th century living in Illinois. Her parents were, well, they were wealthy. She had the best schools, she had the best clothes, she had the best carriages, she had the best horses. She went to college, she graduated, and back in those days, not that many young women graduated from college. But she and a friend then were going to take the grand tour, which was sort of the icing on the cake in those days for people who graduated from college. A grand tour of Europe. Away they went. They got as far as London, and Jane said, let's hire a carriage and go down to Soho. Soho was a slum in London. Soho's still there today. It's a little bit better than the 19th century, but it's still one of the least desirable places to go visit. They wanted to see how the poor people lived. They went down there and they saw how the really poor people lived. And it was for Jane Addams an epiphany. I'm not sure it had quite the same instantaneous epiphany as, for example, Saul on the road to Tarsus becoming Paul, but it was pretty instantaneous. They canceled the grand tour of Europe. Jane got some treatment in what today we would call social work in Toynbee House in London. She came back to Chicago. She founded Hull House, which, by the way, is still there. It's a nice little museum. Next time you go to Chicago, you can go down to Hull House and see that museum. And she spent the rest of her very long and productive life helping immigrants coming in from Europe, helping them learn the English language, helping them adjust to the political system of America. I think she's one of the most admirable people in all of American history. And she also won the Nobel Peace Prize later. When I think, too, of admirable lives, I think of Jonas Salk and his search for polio prevention. How admirable and how worthwhile those years were spent by Jonas Salk. And today, for example, Rotary International has taken up the cause, and since the 1980s, Rotary has had a program called Polio Plus. And Rotary has almost eradicated polio in this world. We hope very soon that it'll be somewhat like smallpox, a gone disease. James Dean had something to say on this too. This is the same James Dean of Giant, of East of Eden, of Rebel Without a Cause. He said, live your life as if you'll live forever. Live this day as if it's your last one. Stop to smell the roses along the way, but also put some zest in your life. And when I think of a proper perspective on life, and it was a hard-won proper perspective, I think of Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a Jew in Europe before World War II. He was caught up in the Holocaust. He wound up in Auschwitz. Most people didn't survive in Auschwitz. But Viktor Frankl, like Benny Hockman down there at Sidney, Nebraska, actually survived. And here's what he had to say about human nature and humanity in life when he wrote his book, Man's Search for Meaning. He said, human kindness can be found in all groups, even those which as a whole it would be easy to condemn. There are two races of men in the world, but only these two. The race of the decent man and the race of the indecent man. Both are found everywhere. They penetrate into all groups of society. No group consists entirely of decent or indecent people. What a magnificent perspective considering what he had gone through. Third point of Cyprian Norwood, something to die for. a cause greater than yourself, a cause greater than your own life. We all die, but die for something useful. E.M. Forster, the person from Britain who wrote a number of well-received books, says, "Death destroys a man. The idea of death saves him. But be careful, I think, of the role model you might choose." Suicide bombers in the Middle East or other places died for a cause. But what a cause. Timothy McVeigh died for a cause, but it was a cause which destroyed a number of individual and innocent people. John Wilkes Booth died for a cause, the lost cause of the Confederacy. But I think these are negative role models. Choose a cause that is uplifting of humanity's better possibilities. I think, for example, of Nathan Hale, who, on the point of being hanged by the British during the American Revolution, said, "I regret that I have but one life to give for my country." And you could replicate this over and over again through our history. Change the name of Nathan Hale. Go to the War of 1812, the Mexican War, the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, World Wars I and II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, etc., and you will find people who are willing to give their lives for a cause above themselves. When I think, too, of good role models, I think of Mother Teresa of Calcutta, India. With her missionaries of charity, she gave her life for the dispossessed, the downtrodden, the outcasts of society. When each of us get down to the end, I think if we can say, as Paul said in 2 Timothy, "I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith." You can do no better than that. Graduates, treasure yesterday, celebrate today, and embrace tomorrow. What's in your wallet? You can turn that around and say now, what's in my wallet? Take stock of your lives, what you live on, what you live for, and what you die for.